Yeah, and I'm letting everybody in the room, okay?
Okay.
Started a few minutes early, so it's not 6 o'clock, so let's give it a minute.
Sure.
Let's had some people that were excited to be here. They were here before 6. And thanks for joining us. We're going to get started. I opened up the room a little bit before 6. It's coming on 6 o'clock now. We're going to give it a couple minutes after that, and then we'll get started. Thanks for joining us this evening. Yeah, we'll give it another minute, and then we'll get started. Hey, John, you can go ahead and get started. I'll just keep letting people in the room as they come. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is John Moy. I'm the Senior Director for Policy and Legislative Affairs right here at the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. And on behalf of Nancy Flake Johnson, our President and CEO, welcome back to another edition, where tonight we are, in commemoration of Men's Health Month, we're doing a special series on men's health. And we've put together a super panel discussion for you all this evening with top healthcare professionals from all around the state to answer your questions regarding men's health and how we can better take care of ourselves, particularly as Black men. But tonight I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Shelly Ann McKenzie, who needs no introduction, a super healthcare professional here in the state of Georgia, who is currently president and founder of HELP for Healthcare Professionals. Shelly Ann, take it away.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you. And thank you for joining us and taking time out of your busy busy schedules to join us for this vital conversation around men's health. I am excited about the panel we have today with our esteemed healthcare professionals board members, as well as Dr. Michelle Nelson. I am Shelly-Ann McKenzie, as John mentioned before. I'm the founder and CEO of Health for Healthcare Professionals. I have over 20 years of healthcare experience, and I lead Health for Healthcare Professionals, which is a local nonprofit that supports healthcare workers through crisis relief education and advocacy. And our efforts ensure that we provide accessible, cultural sensitive mental health support across Georgia for healthcare professionals as well as our community. So I'm honored to be here to guide our discussion alongside my co-moderator, Dr. Michelle Nelson, and figure out how we can break down barriers and promote mental wellness for men in every community. Dr. Michelle Nelson.
Thank you so very much to my lovely co-host, Miss Shelly-Ann McKenzie. I am so grateful to be with everyone this evening. I am Dr. Michelle Nelson, and I am the Director of Graduate Programs at the mighty Clayton State University. Now, I wear a lot of leadership hats in the state of Georgia, but the most important one is that I am a nurse who is dedicated to helping individuals gain access to quality, cost-effective, safe care here in the state of Georgia. It is my pleasure to be invited once again by the Urban League to be able to delve into some of the most important, most pivotal issues of our time. Now, as of recent, Shelly-Ann and I, as well as I'm sure many of you on the call, have lost some individuals that are near and dear to us. These aren't individuals who were up in age or ill, but men who died suddenly that we just can't even understand what is happening. And so we dedicate tonight's event to those individuals who should still be here with us this evening and well into the future. Now, I want to take the time to first and foremost let our panelists introduce themselves. Then I will discuss some of the things that you guys have already heard. And if you haven't heard them before, well, we're going to go over some of the leading issues in men's health, some of the diagnostic tests that accompany them, and some of the preventative measures that you should be engaging in. And this is not just for men. This is for everyone. If you are a woman, if you are a partner, if you are a child, if you are the pastor, if you are the legislator, whoever you may be, that has men in their lives that you care about and you want to ensure that they have productive, longevity, sustainably healthy lives, this event is for you. It is being recorded. You can listen to it again, and you can share it far and wide with those you absolutely know need to hear it. But before we go any further, let's introduce our panelists this evening. I'd like to start with Mr. Curtis O'Neill. Welcome, Mr. O'Neill.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Curtis O'Neill. I am the founder and CEO of Cybernetics Global. We are a technology company that specializes in cybersecurity, but also we do a lot of R&D on the back end, where we specifically have worked with different companies like Google on different types of healthcare apparatuses in the VR space, and specifically in augmented reality that sits on the blockchain that gives mobile healthcare and telehealthcare to those in the different minority spaces, and also in places where people can't get care. And so we're proud of doing some of that work and doing some of the expertise on the back end to work with a lot of the different healthcare professionals in the space to pretty much take healthcare and technology and merge those together to provide a better value system to healthcare. So thank you.
Fantastic. We're so grateful that you're here with us to share your expertise this evening. Then I'd like to introduce Mr. Lyndon Jones. Mr. Jones, are you here? There you are. Oh, for some reason we can't hear you all of a sudden.
One second.
We can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yes,
We can hear you, Mr.
now.
Jones.
I think.
Introduce yourself.
All right. Yeah. So hold on. Speakerphone. Hi, thank you. Hi. You hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Lyndon Jones. I'm a recent graduate of Clayton State University with my master's degree in a concentration on family nurse practice. I'm not currently working as a family nurse practitioner. I'm back at Grady, my home. I'm working on the vascular access team where I insert advanced catheters for patients and change their central line dressings and stuff. But within my my medical background, was in EMS for 16 years, both as an EMT and a paramedic, both here in Georgia and in New York City. While in New York City in 2001, you guys know what happened there. I survived 9/11. So technically, I shouldn't even be here talking to anyone on this panel, but I'm here by the grace of God. So I've saved many lives through my 24 years of EMS. I'm an ER nurse by specialty. ER is my life, pre-hospital and in-hospital emergency medicine. I'm not looking for a family nurse practitioner job just yet, but when I do, I want to get into heart failure as my specialty.
Fantastic. And may I also add that Mr. Jones is one of the newest members of the advisory board for Clayton State University and
Yes, ma'am.
one of my esteemed former students. So we're so happy to hear from you, Mr. Jones.
Also,
all that you've learned
Yes,
and that you're putting into action.
And
So
one
we're
more
happy to
thing.
have you.
One more thing, I'm also a clinical instructor part-time for Clayton State University. I'm a faculty now, so I'm part-time faculty.
Okay, very good. And last but not least, for most of you, this gentleman needs no introduction. He is a veteran when it comes to the Urban League and talking about issues that affect your community that you care most about. We're so grateful to have with us again the incomparable Representative Derrick Jackson.
Hello, listen, Dr. Michelle Nelson, it's always great to share the panel with you. I mean, you are a wealth of information, especially when it comes around healthcare. And I'm also elated to share the stage with Curtis and Lyndon and my dear friend, Shelly Ann. Listen, I am just happy to be here. As by way of a short bio, as Dr. Nelson stated, I am a military veteran. I did 22 years in the United States Navy. And then when I retired in 2005, went into corporate America, worked there for 10 years for General Electric. And then I ran for a state House seat where I represent the 68th district and started in 2016. And this coming January, I'll be starting my 5th term. And one of the things I learned 2 years ago while I was running for lieutenant governor, and I see one of my colleagues, Representative Brian Prince, that represents over there in Augusta, that when you look at Georgia as a whole, Dr. Nelson, it's 159 counties. There's 536 cities. And not every county and not every city in Georgia are created equal. Not all of them have healthcare practitioners that we desperately need across all of Georgia. We've had over 12 hospitals that have closed over the last 16 years. We have 82 out of 159 counties with no OBGYN. We have 61 counties out of 159 counties without a pediatrician. And we have a deficit, you ready, Dr. Nelson, of 40,000 nurses. That's what Georgia needs.
And growing.
Right now. And it continues to grow. And so we got to shrink this deficit of nurses. We got to make sure that we have healthcare practitioners so that way all Georgians across Georgia, all 159 counties, all 536 cities have the healthcare that they demand. And so it's great to be with you all to talk about policy, talk about legislation, and talk about the things that we need to do to move Georgia forward in a more healthier state.
Now, Representative Jackson, boy, you started preaching early tonight. We are just getting into it, Curtis. We can't even wait. We can't. This thing always gets hot and spicy. Why?
Well, I love
Because
I
we
love
want to
data.
save lives.
I love data, Dr. Nelson. I love data. I consume myself with data.
Absolutely, because policies and solutions should always be data, evidence-based, statistical, and data-driven. So this is why we always turn to you, Representative Jackson. But I want to start us off with talking about some of the leading issues. This is not going to be exhaustive and comprehensive, but some of the leading issues that men are facing today. And if you don't get anything else out of this talk tonight, I'm going to start with, and I'm going to end with, you are responsible for you and your health care. Things on the horizon and the healthcare landscape are poised for great change. The winds of change are blowing, and it is incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we are on top of our health, that we are dialed into what's going on with our bodies, and that we are responsible and making sure that we're seeking care. There's a lot of us who have health insurance, but we're so busy being busy that we don't get to the doctor. And things are changing, as everybody knows. So please make sure that this information we share with you tonight, that you don't just keep it to yourself, you share it with others. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I want to talk about is cardiovascular disease. Well, first of all, men's health encompasses a wide range of conditions, diagnostic tests, preventative health measures that can vary by your stage in life, your age, your lifestyle, and individual risk factors that you engage in. So, here are some of the leading concerns, the recommended diagnostic tests, and the preventative measures. So let's start with cardiovascular disease. It is the leading cause of death among men worldwide, driven by risk factors such as high blood pressure, smoking, obesity, and a sedentary lifestyle. So what should you be doing? You need to go get a blood pressure machine. They sell them right at Walgreens, Walmart, and anywhere else. You need to be monitoring your blood pressure, especially if you're over the age of 40. You need to understand what your cholesterol level is. It's called a lipid profile. We want to make sure that you are getting this annually when you go to your doctor's office. And if there are risk factors present, that you are doing what it needs to take through lifestyle modification, and I mean mainly diet and taking the medications that are prescribed to you. EKGs also detect any heart abnormalities, and stress tests evaluate heart function under physical exertion. So whether they ask you to walk on a treadmill or whatever, you need to be getting those stress tests at a certain time. If you find that when you get up and you walk to the mailbox, all of a sudden you're out of breath, you're sweating, that you are you seem to be in distress upon exertion that you never were in, please go to the doctor and get it checked. What can you do to prevent cardiovascular disease? Maintain a heart healthy diet. These are foods that are low in saturated fats and sodium. Make sure that you're exercising regularly. Get out and go for a walk with your sweetie or by yourself. Avoid smoking and limit your alcohol intake, and make sure that you're managing stress and getting enough sleep. So many of us are under so much pressure. Okay, stress kills, and make sure that you're getting at least your 8 hours. Next thing, prostate cancer. One of the most common cancers in men. particularly in those over 50. Family history and race, particularly if you're a Black man, those are key risk factors. So what should you be getting? You need to be getting your PSA levels checked. I saved my father-in-law's life. He never had his PSA checked, and I thought I was doing something amazing. I wanted to buy an insurance policy on him, and one of the first things they checked on him was PSA levels, which were through the roof, and we were able to save his life. Digital rectal exams. Now, for men, they don't like to get this. It's going to involve you going to the doctor and with a finger examining that prostate. But like I say to my husband, it's either you go to the doctor and let the doctor do it, or I do it. Which one would you prefer? Let me go get the lube and see what's going on. Because I need you, brother. I'm a girl that needs a whole lot of care. So I need to have you around. So it's either the doctor's going to do it or Dr. Love right here is going to do it. All right. So what does that mean? That means that you're getting that PSA test, that you're also maintaining a balanced diet, that you're getting the regular screening, and don't forget testicular exams as well. When you are in the shower, you should be examining your testicles. Are you feeling any lumps or bumps? You got to go tell somebody and make sure that you're staying physically active. Next thing, lung cancer. If anybody on here is still smoking, I should be coming to your house to give you a good spanking. Smoking is the leading cause, but even non-smokers are at risk due to environmental exposure. So, how do we handle this? Well, if you are a smoker or a significant smoking history, low-dose CT scans. If you're between the ages of 50 and 80, you should be having those. But how do you prevent it? Avoid smoking or quit. If you're currently smoking, you need to stop. Limit exposure to secondhand smoke as well. Go get the gum. Go get the patch. Chew the patch. Wear the gum. I don't care what you do, but it's time to stop smoking. How about diabetes? Oh, we love a good Southern meal, don't we, Representative Jackson? Some nice fried this and that, and fricassee that and that, and this, that, and the next, and with a nice libation to wash it down. Lord have mercy. We're killing ourselves. Type 2 diabetes is increasingly common, particularly in men with a family history of obesity and unhealthy lifestyle. So what should you be doing? Measuring your blood sugar. There's a test called an A1C test. That thing should not be above, let's say, the high fives. If it's 6 and above, well, you're in trouble. If 7 above, you're really in trouble. Make sure that you have an average blood sugar level. You're getting that every 3 months. So how do you prevent that? Following a balanced, low sugar, high fiber diet, exercising regularly, and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and limiting your alcohol and managing your blood pressure. Next thing, obesity. Lord, it's all of us, myself included. But you can't give up. You got to try. Obesity is a growing health condition linked to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and certain cancers. You should be monitoring your BMI, known as the body mass index. It's a measure of body fat, also looking at your waist circumference. Your body fat percentage, those two things provide insight as to where you stand in terms of your weight. And make sure that you're looking at the different blood tests, like your lipid profiles, your liver function, and your glucose levels. So how do you prevent obesity? Maintaining a healthy diet, regular exercise, portion control. They say push back from the table. Oh, it's hard to do. I know, I'm right there with you, but we got to do it. And avoiding sugary processed foods, regularly maintaining weight and body fat percentage. Next up, mental health. This is something that is so taboo. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in depth, the stigma, particularly for Black men. depression, and anxiety, men are often less likely to seek help for mental health issues, which increases risk of untreated depression, anxiety, and suicide. So there are various psychological assessments, but we have to be okay with saying that there's an issue. I love to share with people that I have a therapist. I have been in therapy for maybe a year and a half. Why do I share that? And why is that important to me? It's not because something is wrong with me psychologically. My therapist is in my life to be able to give me feedback, to help me to vibrate on a higher level and to keep my energy up. I'm a very, very busy person. This is the person who gives me feedback and helps me stay focused. And she's not afraid to tell me when I'm thinking wrong, or maybe I need to adjust my way of thinking. Everyone should have a therapist. And if you don't have one and you know you need one, contact your insurance company and start going. What are the preventative measures you can engage in? Foster open discussions about your mental health. Regularly engage in stress-reducing activities, hobbies, exercise, meditation, going for a walk. Seek professional support if experiencing persistent mood changes or higher levels of anxiety and stress than you usually have. But what about sexual health and testosterone levels? Erectile dysfunction and low testosterone are common, especially as men age. What are some of the you don't have to live life like that. Everyone should be experience an active, if you desire, an active and fulfilling sex life if that's what you would like to do. And there are remedies for this. Test your blood for your testosterone levels. Assess the levels, particularly if there are symptoms of low libido, fatigue, or depression, as well as STD testing. They are recommended for sexually active men, particularly if you have multiple partners. So what is it that you can do? Healthy lifestyle to support blood flow and hormone regulation, maintaining healthy weight and reducing stress, as well as regular physical activity. Then colorectal cancer. This is the last one I'm going to address. There's so many more. But colorectal cancer risk increases with age, particularly for men over 50. You should be getting a colonoscopy at least every 10 years. For some of you, every 5 years, starting at the age of 45 to 50, and more frequently if you have a family history of colorectal cancer. You can even do it at home through a fecal occult blood tests, annual or biannual screenings for blood in your stool. How can you prevent this? You should be eating foods that are rich in fiber, fruits, and vegetables with limited red and processed meat, regular physical activity, avoid smoking, and excessive alcohol intake. One other thing I want to mention is osteoporosis. Although it's more common in women, it can affect men. And if you feel that you're being affected, you can get a DEXA scan, which is a bone density scan, especially for men over 70 with risk factors like prolonged steroid use or low testosterone. What are the preventive things you can do? Adequate intake of calcium and vitamin D, making sure that you're eating foods that are rich in these things, weight bearing and resistance exercising, and avoiding smoking and excessive alcohol. So, overall, before we get into our panelists, we need you to get routine physical exams. Annual physicals can help catch early warning signs of various conditions. Make sure you're up to date with your vaccinations. I'm talking flu shots, tetanus, age-appropriate vaccinations. What are some of the other ones? Shingles. They got still the COVID vaccines. All those
Meningitis,
things.
flu,
I'm sorry, what else?
meningitis, flu.
All of them.
flu
Go
season.
get them. Healthy diet and regular exercise is crucial for preventing a range of health issues. And most importantly, mental health awareness. Recognize the importance of mental health and please tell someone. You don't have to suffer alone. Seek care. Make sure you're getting your regular screenings. You're leading a proactive, healthy lifestyle with adjustments. They are vital in maintaining your health, and early detection is key in effectively managing and preventing a long, protracted sequelae of additional health issues. With that being said, let's get into the nitty-gritty with our panelists. Shelly Ann McKenzie, I yield the floor back to you.
Okay, now for the formality of the night. But thank you, Dr. Nelson, for going into some much needed, insightful, specific testing that we should pay attention to, whether we're males or we have a loved one in our life who is a male, and I know we all do. Okay, so Representative Derrick Jackson. Stigma around seeking mental health support remains a significant barrier for men. Programs that use peer-led support networks like Move Over's Stronger Together campaign demonstrate that framing mental health as resilience can reduce stigma. Peer-led support has been shown to make men more comfortable discussing mental health within familiar contexts. In many cultures, there's still a stigma attached to men seeking mental health support. Sometimes it shows a sign of weakness. And of course, there's an element of pride in there as well. So how can we work to shift these attitudes and normalize mental health care for men at both as the individual level and at our community levels?
You know, Shelly Ann, that's a great question. And we first have to address, why is there a stigma, especially when it comes to Black men in our culture, right? And I think the reason why we do have a stigma, because there's some history when it comes down to healthcare. In our community, very seldom you will see Black doctors. And so it would be great for a Black man to be able to go and speak to another Black man or Black woman about healthcare. And that will give some sort of familiarity around culture, be able to speak at the same language and meet that Black man where he is. There's another reason why we do have stigma in the Black culture, and that is history when it comes to medicine, right? I mean, we don't have to go back too far about the Tuskegee experiment, which started a lot of what we feel today. But let's just go back 4 years ago. COVID, right? There was a lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation about COVID. And so that played into our skepticism. And so you put that on top of stigma, then you're going to have Black men not going to seek the necessary healthcare needs or get those healthcare needs addressed. I think the other part, Shelly Ann, to your question, and if I may be honest here, is trust. There's a trust factor when it comes down to our health for Black men and Black women. Now, I will say Black women is a little bit more advanced than we are, because Black women start talking about their body when they start their menstrual cycle. I grew up with 3 sisters. They were all younger than me. And so I was the big brother that was sent to the store to get the necessary woman care needs for my 3 sisters. And so my 3 sisters started getting educated about their body far earlier than I was getting educated about my body. And so that plays in it too, from an educational and awareness. And I would say the last piece, Shelly Ann, and I know we're going to get more into this later on this evening, but when you start talking about policies and legislation, right? There's another factor where, as I stated in my opening intro, again, where my good friend Brian Prince, Representative Brian Prince, he lives out in Augusta. He may not have all the resources that I have in the Atlanta metropolitan area. And so when you add all of this up, Shelly Ann, it's not one single bullet to address all of these things when it comes to stigma in the Black culture, but we have to address why it's here, how it got here, and then we got to be laser focused, because in the end, to Dr. Nelson's introduction, one of the points that she was really, to me, at least I heard as a Black man and as a husband, as a father, our women want us to live longer. And depending on which study you look at, Shelly Ann, Black men life expectancy is 5 to 6 years shorter than a white man because of stigma, lack of trust, lack of education, lack of awareness, lack of resources. And so all these things add up to a disaster when you start talking about Black men's health. And we got to do more across all 159 counties in Georgia. So the same thing that we get in Atlanta, they get in Augusta, they get in Savannah, they get in Macon, they get in Valdosta, they get in Columbus, they get in all 159 counties here in Georgia. That's how we address this.
Yeah, no. I wholeheartedly agree. We need to form more collaborations and launch public campaigns, collaborative campaigns, so we can have these conversations and disseminate the information. So we won't truly become standardized, but get as close to some level of standard as possible. Dr. Nelson?
Yes, Mr. O'Neill, did you have something to add to this?
For me, I love what Representative Jackson speaking about, especially when it comes down to some of the challenges when it comes down to access, right? And so that's what I love about the next piece that I'll be speaking about as far as digital, being in a digital age and being able to fill some of those gaps, you know, to democratize healthcare, leveraging IT solutions. And so, you know, when we start looking at, you know, yeah, if you can't especially in the rural areas and the urban cities, get access to doctors or to some form of health care. At least if you have some kind of access to the internet, you'll be able to leverage some of those resources that are out there, especially for the initial checkpoints that you can have. You know, we've gone from now emergency care in our communities is just emergency care, it seems like across the board, versus back in the day, people that had some form of wealth were able to have preventative care to where like their relationship with healthcare was monthly, you know, it was weekly. They knew their doctors, you know, their doctors were, you know, the kind that come in the neighborhood and kind of walk around. And so that's some of the work that we're doing over here as far as leveraging augmented reality in the virtual space to see how can we, you know, leverage while we're fixing some of the workforce gaps, figure out how we can come up with different solutions to at least give us that, you know, preventative medicine care to agree where we get a better relationship with a doctor, get a quick little checkup. Yeah, it may not fix all your problems, but at least you can identify some of your problems. And that's the first thing, just being able to just identify some of your main problems and at least have a healthy relationship in the healthcare space.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into just building our digital solutions, because digital platforms, they provide anonymity. Some of you are familiar with BetterHelp, and they've been shown to improve men's engagement in mental health support. So studies from Men's Health Network indicate that men prefer platforms that offer, you know, a certain level of confidentiality. And as Curtis mentioned, you don't have to go in to your doctor in person. You can actually, in the peace and quiet and privacy of your own home, have self-guided resources that allow them to access the help without perceived stigma as traditional face-to-face therapies. So what role do you see digital solutions, and this is just an opportunity, Curtis, for you to expand, what role do you see digital solutions in supporting men's mental health? And are there specific platforms that have proven effective in reducing barriers to care?
So I'll start with what people are working on out there first, and then I'll go into what's out there right now. So since we're in that 21st century, right? So we're in that digital age. We're looking to democratize healthcare across the board, right? Everybody is exactly how Representative Jackson said. We need to be able to have it to where people have equal access to care at the same level all across the board. And so that kind of starts with leveraging the technology out there, especially when you start looking at leveraging platforms like blockchain. You know, you start talking about digital records and being able to have access to your own information and being able to have access to your own healthcare records to where you don't have it to where you got to go and find some work from 2002 from this doc, find work from 2010 from another doc, you have that information that's accessed in a immutable ledger out there distributed that you can control, and you can be able to at least have the most accurate information history out there that you control and your family can control. And also, from a lineage standpoint, if I need to look at my great grandmother's history, that to really give doctors the information they need all the way, from once past. And so when we start looking at that kind of stuff and leveraging augmented reality to be able to give people access to even doctors that they left from New York and they're in Georgia, and let's say the physician that they were with, they're able to still be able to connect across the board and at least get some of that care. I love where what we're building out across the space, but I hope we just keep it clean, because sometimes capitalism gets in the way, and something that's built with pure heart, people start charging a fee and still deny people access. But to make things more current, some of the amazing things that are out there right now, like Teladoc Health, a great platform that's out there. Doximity. And so when you start looking at those types of platforms, especially for those of us that want to be more discreet, we really don't want people all in our business. We really don't like sitting in waiting rooms, looking at strangers, looking at us, trying to figure out why we're in there, and so, that's the thing, right? And so you're able to kind of have that consultation from the comfort of your home and be able to have that, the discrepancy, to be a little bit more discreet about what you say and how you say it, at least around your loved ones. And then when it comes down to mental health, which is absolutely crucial, you have things out there like Calm, you got Headspace, and you got Talkspace. And when you start talking about the mental health piece, I love what Dr. Nelson was talking about, which is almost the bedrock, when it comes down to the strength and understanding what breaks down the rest of your health. If you're not mentally focused, you're not mentally resilient, and you don't have a great mental health space, it really charges the rest of your factors, to including, putting pressure on your heart. And so, I'll stop there. I think I've seen some hands.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have Mr. Jones on with us, and I just want to say that Mr. Jones is actually in the clinical setting, taking care of patients while he's with us this evening. So we are so grateful that he's able to dip in and out and care for his patients and also share what he's seeing with us, in the field.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Jones, did you want to add something to what was said earlier, Mr. Jones? Because then the next question is yours.
I'm right here, Dr. Nelson. I'm sorry.
No
everyone.
worries. Go ahead.
No. We appreciate you. Go ahead, Mr. Jones. We can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry. I honestly did not hear anything that the gentleman
You
said.
can just
because I
ask
was
this
in a room.
question. Dr. Nelson, go ahead and ask this question about the unique challenges and pressures.
If we can I add one more thing when it comes down to the digital health, because I'd be remiss if I didn't make sure that I spoke for some of the veterans out there. I too am a veteran, 21 years in the Army. And so when it comes down to the VA mental health care app, it is paramount for especially a lot of those servicemen and women out there that are struggling with PTSD and different type of health challenges, especially, people that suffer with TBIs. A lot of times, some of the same conditions of a PTSD, those symptoms are pretty much the same. And so VA does a great job at trying to stay in tune with the digital age to make sure that they give at least those service members and their families that access to digital health. Thank you.
I think Representative Jackson has a response, but before I call on you, Representative Jackson, I want to thank all the veterans that are on with us tonight. We had Veterans Day yesterday, and we're so grateful for you serving our country and keeping us safe and standing for us many times when we couldn't stand for ourselves. Representative Jackson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nelson. The only 2 points I want to add to Curtis, because as Curtis was sharing, 2 things came to mind, and that was broadband. When you think about broadband, we do not have a broadband infrastructure all across Georgia. Yeah. And so in order for us to be able to do what Curtis was articulating about telemedicine and things of that nature, you need a broadband infrastructure to facilitate that. Without it, you won't be able to do the things that Curtis was just outlining. And so there's, this is the chicken and the egg situation. And so it's great that we have all of these capabilities in terms of digital aspects and software and hardware. But if you don't have the infrastructure to be able to do what Curtis outlined, it ain't gonna get done. The second point too, as well, Dr. Nelson, and I'll consider myself a pretty smart dude, but I can't read a my chart. So even if I get the information and I'm looking at all this information that someone like Dr. Michelle Nelson was trained, went to 20 years of school, and once I look at it on my computer, Curtis, I still don't know. And so so there's an education and awareness piece that we gotta make sure that we include, because it could be very intimidating to get the information. Now that I can pull it up, it's great. I'm in the comfort of my own home. I pull it up and I still cannot interpret the information. I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. And so there's an education and awareness piece, Shelly Ann, when you got to think about all these things that Curtis outlined. It's great, but I got to be able to interpret it. I got to be able to know what I do next, because I don't know if my chart is telling me I need to take some preventive steps or some corrective steps.
Mm-hmm.
And if I live in South Georgia, where Phoebe Putnam Hospital, one hospital that serves 40 counties, so there's no staff that's going to help me interpret and educate me on my chart.
Yeah.
So it's great to be able to have access to do the things that Curtis outlined. But if you don't educate me, if you don't give me the tools I need, Dr. Nelson, my chart is just as good as this bottle of water. Ain't nothing going to happen.
I want to make sure I caveat on that as well. I love the fact that you brought that up, and so that's why it's paramount that with some of the tools that they build out, they leverage AI to kind of shape some of those findings. And so the whole thing is to be almost like a two-sided marketplace, to where your profile is being automated and all that information is being curated in a way to where it's already teed up for that physician to go ahead and be able to read your profile. And so when they get it, so I want to get into how some of that stuff breaks down, because we was working on that the last 18 months, and it's pretty amazing what practitioners are doing out there in the field. But you're absolutely right. It's hard for anybody to read those files. But to the broadband piece, like you said, that's the backbone infrastructure of what everything rides on. And so what I would want to see if I can get you to do, sir, is to be able to add this to the conversation, because I think it's missing, which is we have to redefine what broadband is. Traditionally, in the 90s, broadband internet was 25 megabits per second, and that was smoking. I mean, that was super fast. But now we've got these little babies in the house, and they've got all their streaming apparatuses, the TV streaming, the refrigerator streaming, your cell phone streaming. Everybody is using all that bandwidth.
Screaming.
Everybody's
Screaming and screaming, screaming and screaming, and dreaming.
So 25 megabits as a broadband should not be the standard anymore. And so we've got to redefine what does that look like, whether maybe broadband needs to be probably 100 megabits per second now. To at least think about at least 4 devices running at one time, especially download and upload speeds, because we found in COVID that there were limitations to everybody's network. And a lot of school systems in places that had different infrastructure, and including the ones that were kind of resilient, realized that there were still choke points in the network.
Mr. O'Neill, before I move on to the next segment for Mr. Jones, I'm gonna drop a little bomb, and you can push back on it.
No worries.
Okay. We're saying here tonight that it is very important that we understand that we are providing these digital experiences along with education.
Yes.
Forgive me for saying this, but what I'm seeing in the media
Uh-huh.
is that this last election
Mhm.
was won because people were receiving all of their information digitally when we didn't even understand that that's what was going on.
Okay.
People are engaged, young, old, in the middle, all over. Podcasts,
Yeah.
websites, streaming, screaming, dreaming, whatever we're calling it. They are plugged in.
Yes.
So how do we leverage the fact that people are a lot more plugged in than we thought they were? How can we leverage it to really save lives and get this information out?
Correct information.
I think
Correct
at
information.
some point we've got to move to a space where we have to agree that most of everybody that's in real world right now are digital natives at this point. Yeah, probably 10 years ago, people were in the space where they weren't digital natives, but everybody's grandmother is on Facebook, everybody's using Instagram, all the social handles. And so people are very in tune, right? The reason why people say I don't do technology is because the technology is moving faster than they last learned. However, they're still further than some of their peers were before. And so when we're talking about making sure that people don't get, I guess, information exhausted because there's so many levels of information. We have to make sure from a medical standpoint that some of these medical institutions create more of a brand and a system to where people can say, hey, if I'm going here, this is the most correct answer, most correct information. Here's where my medical files are here. Here's how I leverage my data here. And I think when you start looking at, and I don't want to keep saying blockchain, when we start making sure that the information is the most right, that's where you're able to leverage different technologies like blockchain because they sit on an immutable ledger. So people can't change it. People, once you put it out there and you say that this is the most correct, then no one can go in there and alter it. And if you alter it, my team is working with another team out of California on some things in the software standpoint. However, maybe we should look at it from a medical information standpoint as well to alarm when information has been changed or if something is not correct and leveraging AI. So a lot of these things on the brink right now to where we were looking at emerging technology as a separate thing. But I think the beauty comes in technology when we start taking those emerging technologies from a singular and start putting them together to make a better human experience. I.e. the smartphone. Smartphone used to be a TomTom Garmin, and people used to have those conversations. What are you running, TomTom to Garmin? Some people were using different types of calculators, but now when you start taking all these different types of technology and put them in one apparatus, definitely, I think most people, if they left home with their cell phone, even an hour away, they probably go all the way back just to get it because that literally is their business walking with them. So that's how I kind of see that.
Well, you may run back to get that cell phone for a number of reasons.
Well, that part,
No. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all not gonna leave that cell phone nowhere for nobody to look at.
We want to make sure
Or the
that when
men's
you
health.
call, we want to make sure when you call, we answer. That's what that is.
Good comeback, nice comeback. But of course, it all goes back to even the education and a lot of just people nowadays, they don't even realize if Curtis or I with a tech background said, do you know what an M-Mobile app is?
Yeah.
And they're like, what's M-Mobile? But they use it every day because all your cell phones have apps on it and there's M-Mobile apps.
Yeah.
No one functions without M-Mobile apps in this day and age. But it's just the terminology and the technology terminology that people need to learn. And that's one of the things we'll be sure Representative Jackson to invite you to. We have a health education series we're working on with Georgia Hospital Association and Inspired Youth for 2025 that speaks to digital health literacy and that type of stuff. So you'll just watch for that. But it's like a 9-part workshop series, and that's the goal, to educate our communities at all levels about the different portals and leveraging telehealth and how they can, take better control of their care, their health care.
Well, I have a question for Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, are you with us?
I'm right here. I'm right here.
Okay, fantastic. So this question is for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Unique challenges and pressures, all right? So there are unique societal and internal pressures that men face, from expectations around masculinity to work-related stress.
Yes.
What do you see as some of the most common mental health challenges men face today, and what strategies are most effective in addressing these?
Well, that's a very, very good question right there. When you look at the increased rates of suicide, for instance, right? And we could take, I will take 3 men in particular, all right? We could take Robin Williams, who made people laugh for many years, from since he was Mork and Mindy, all the way up to Miss Doubtfire and so on and so forth. And he internalized his thoughts, right? He never really expressed what was going on with him. We can take as recent as Twitch from the Helen DeGeneres show.
Mhm.
Up until the Sunday before his death, he was on TikTok dancing with his wife as they do every day. And again, you wouldn't look at someone and say that's an external sign, right? He's doing what he normally does. On the Tuesday of that week, he drove himself to a hotel, put his phone on airplane mode, and took his life, right? You look at someone like Anthony Bourdain. He traveled all around the world, indulging people in different kinds of food and different cultures and so on and so forth. And we as a society wouldn't look at Anthony Bourdain and say, wow, he looks like he has a mental issue, right? So the first thing we got to do is define what a mental issue is, right? We can't just say, oh, that person is crazy or that person is going through psychosis, because men, on the whole, we internalize what's going on, whether we have a permanent partner in our life or whatever, right? We generally internalize it, right? Men are generally, and we're talking about men across the spectrum, right? No race, just across the spectrum, because I gave you a black guy and I give you 2 white guys, right? So it's across the spectrum. Men, on a general whole, internalize thoughts. They don't like to speak about what's going on within themselves, because that masculinity is, I am the protector, right? I protect my family. My family don't need to worry about what's going on at work, right? When in fact, men could be having a very, very stressful day at work. And when they come home, I'm not saying that women are bickering, but understanding what the man went through, instead of saying, hey, honey, how was your day, is the bickering. I'm not saying generally, but you just never know, right? Then we look at, on the female side, you look at Kate Spade. Kate Spade did the same thing, took her own life, right? I know we talk about men's health, but it's a general mental health issue. So subtle changes, I'll give you one example. I'll give you one example of social media. And I don't like to take credit for saving lives, but I saved my friend's life from Georgia, and he was in New York. I never told anybody this story. I'll tell you in 5 seconds. At 12 o'clock in the day, he cut himself across the neck. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon, I looked at my social media and I saw his post that said, I am out. Now, this young man is a man I work with, right? Is a man I work with a lot. So I know he doesn't speak like that, right? So when I looked at his social media, I said, but wait, why is everybody just saying, okay, see you soon, have a good time? Nobody picked up on the fact that that was a signal. So when I called him at 6:45, he's telling me, and I texted him, he's telling me, oh, bro, I'm sorry, it's too late. I said, bro, what are you talking about? It's too late. He said, man, I did something that was stupid. So being in EMS, I'm in Georgia now. Remember, I'm in Georgia. He's in Brooklyn. When we're in EMS in New York, we have a shield number. Once we have that shield number, that's all our demographics. So what I did, I went on his social media. I made a couple of comments. I got in touch with some friends. Long story short, our EMS colleagues got to his basement, and sure enough, he was in the basement, bleeding from an arterial cut across his neck from 12 o'clock. From 12 o'clock, nobody recognized that this was a sign for help. but I know my friend. He's not a social media friend. He's my buddy that I work with. You know what I mean? So when we look at subtle changes, that's one of the things we need to look at. Everybody on your social media either is your friend or acquaintance, but you got to know your friends, right? So anyway, we got him to the hospital. We went to Brookdale. They stitched the sawed off his right carotid. He's alive and well. He and his wife rekindled, and they moved to Jacksonville. So that was a save for me, right? From Georgia.
Wow.
You see? From Georgia. So that's one of the subtle changes we need to look at. I can give you many other stories of friends of mine who their male friends said the same thing on social media. I'm going to kill myself, and they couldn't get to them in time. But we need to pay very, very close attention to what people are saying on social media, right? Be very careful how they respond. And, you know, when we look at one more female, I'll tell you, the Miss America a few years ago, I was in New York in 2021. She jumped off 42 stories in Times Square, but she was a high functioning depressive. She was Miss America, she was a lawyer, and one morning she got up on a Sunday and jumped out the window. Were there signs before? I don't know. But her mom says, well, she has a high functioning depressive attitude, where one of the subtle signs again is always keeping busy. Always, that's another sign to look at for men, right? Always keeping busy. Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, trying to distract themselves of what's really going on. So we got to, women got to look at their husbands or look at their partners very carefully and say, man, why are you so busy? What's going on with you? Take a step back, slow down. Are you okay? You need to talk to somebody. So that's another subtle sign you can look at as well that I have seen within my EMS, my ER, and my life now, right? I could see that. I study behavior very well. I could tell when someone changes their attitude, when your facial expression, when they don't want to talk. So you have to be very, very careful and subtle when you approaching men like that, right? That's just a couple examples.
Mr. Jones, and I'm sure our other panelists may want to jump in, but I want to share something here about the relationship I have with my husband. And everybody who knows my husband thinks I just believe he's Mr. Perfect, because he is. He truly is the apple of my eye. He is an amazing gentleman. I've known him. We've known each other since we're 13 years old, and my husband just grows more darling every single day I see him.
Right.
But when I'm speaking to and I am mentoring young women who are in relationships, I always start with this, and I've shared this with Shelly. You know what the word man means? To me, it's an acronym.
Right.
Man means meets all needs. That's what a man is supposed to do.
Right. Exactly.
And as women or partners, children, loved ones, neighbors, the pastor, or whatever, no man can meet all needs. You have to make sure that the men in your life, that they're well, they're not overburdened, that they also have time for themselves. What man can meet all needs? That's impossible. No woman can meet all needs. And to think, if you're saying to a man, I say to my husband, you're here to meet all my needs. What a heavy load that is, because Dr. Michelle Nelson, she got a lot of needs.
Lot of
And
needs.
she's not cheap to keep. She's expensive. I cannot put all of that on my husband. So the other thing that we need to do, Mr. Jones, as you said so rightly, is to understand those subtle cues when someone has changed, not a whole lot, just a little bit. And also making sure that you're also there standing in the gap to be able to support. Very important. Representative Jackson, Mr. O'Neill, what say you?
As my friend Lyndon Jones was talking, three things came to mind. One, coping strategies. We don't often talk about coping strategies. There was a time we did, and I know in the military, especially depending on the demand at that time, the season, that military battalion or ship or battle group, we implement coping strategies. And them coping strategies could range anywhere from reading the Bible, exercising, eating right, balancing stress, how to manage stress, medication. I mean, there's just a plethora of things. So coping strategies is one. I think the other thing, to answer your question, Dr. Nelson, is listen, I'm a type A plus, Shelly Ann. I'm a type A plus. Man, I'm going 100 miles an hour. That doesn't mean I'm trying to stay busy. It's just the way it is, right? And I don't want you to say, "Hey, man, you okay?" No, I really am okay.
But stop right there. Stop right there.
Right?
Just as you said, stop right there. You're a type A. You're always going, right?
That's
but
right.
If you slow down, someone need to ask, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
There you go.
They need to see the subtle early warning signs.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go. No, Lyndon, you see, you're like Speedy Gonzalez. You got there before I got there.
Yes.
Right?
Sorry.
If you see a change in the individual, I'm a strong extrovert. If you start to see me withdraw, become secluded and isolated,
that part.
So to Brother Jones' point, then now you need to intervene. And that brings me to my third and final point. When you think about where we are, Shelly Ann, in this day and age, and everything's on social media, and man, I tell everybody to Lyndon's Jones' point, you have to tell folks, especially your friends, your family, in your close circle, I give you permission to help save me. Right? We got to be okay with giving folks permission, Dr. Nelson. As Dr. Nelson said, she is taking permission about making sure she keep her husband safe. Right? Because she want her husband to stay around, Shelly Ann. And so there's no doubt in my mind, my queen will do the same thing. Hey, man, you need to take a break. Give me that phone. Tell everybody, it's me time. We're going to do a date night. Right?
We're going on vacation. We're flying out.
Yes. Yes, Shelly Ann. We got to be okay with that.
But you know what, Representative Jackson? Like the young people say, men need to be flued out too. They can't do all the fluent.
Yeah.
I need to be able to call you tonight and say, baby, it's Friday. Put something in a bag. We're going to Jamaica for the weekend. We don't even need clothes. We're going to sit by the beach with a drink, eat jerk chicken, put the kids somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah.
And we'll be back Sunday night in time for Monday. But how easy, Curtis O'Neill, is it for a man to say, I want to be wined and dined and flew out too?
Yeah. So something I would like to add is I akin a lot of men's roles to my time in the service, right? So a lot of times, you're a leader amongst leaders, you're a leader amongst people, you're a leader amongst your family, your community, even at your workplace, right? And so a lot of times, a lot of these high functioning people, they don't show any signs, that you can train to. And so a lot of those signs are great, but a lot of these people are very happy from the outside. A lot of these people are very impactful from the outside. A lot of these people don't miss a lot of times because they're often pouring a lot of times from an empty cup. And so, when we start looking at, I love what Representative Jackson said, as well as Mr. Jones, which is, ask those questions. But I tell people, I was like, my time in service, I found a lot of times when you're working with guys that are those type A personalities, you got to ask that one extra question. you almost got to ask that one clarifying question, and you got to reshape what it is, because okay is going to get yeah, but hey, what made you smile today will make you think. Hey man, well, what did you do different today, man? What made you frown today? Like really start asking like different types of questions. I even do it with my children, because I used to, pick them up from school. Hey, how was your day? I was good. Okay, got it. And then you realize, hey, what made you smile today? Literally would make them pause and be like, I don't know. And so when we start looking at the mental health piece, I think in my journey, things like resiliency training, master resiliency training that we had in the military, I used to hate it. I'm not gonna lie to you. They used to make us do it every quarter. And little did we know, when they were talking about this iceberg, like, hey, you got the tip of the iceberg at the top. But if you look up under, that water body, there's a whole list of problems. There's a whole list of issues that you don't see that hasn't hit the surface. And so what I realized was, even though we did not like it saved our lives, in austere environments. And it saved my life every day right now, after being retired. And it makes me realize that, you got to hunt the good stuff. You got to develop a mental agility, but you also have to understand self-awareness. And a lot of times we don't really know who we are. And if you can kind of figure out how to just figure out who you are as a person, without saying I'm a husband, without saying, I work here, without saying, here's what my title is, just really just know thyself, amongst everything else. And then we can probably move to that emotional regulation to kind of like figure out ourselves. And a lot of parts about the other two parts I would say about those programs is just teaching, strengthening your relationships and having effective communication, as well as cultivating optimism, even in spite of, right? A lot of times we go through stuff all the time, and it does not work out all the time. But if you can just really hunt that good stuff in the situation and kind of find value in that, I think it'll pull us through. So that's what I got.
Fantastic. Shelly Ann?
Okay, access and affordability policies, because we would be remiss if we had this conversation and didn't touch on that, especially having Representative Jackson here with us. So research shows that men in underserved communities often face barriers such as cost, limited availability of services, and stigma, as you know, associated with seeking help. Integrating healthcare services into community hubs like barbershops and sports centers have proven effective. They have a cut hypertension initiative that demonstrate that men are more likely to engage in care when it's accessible in trusted community spaces. So what are some policies or initiatives do you think would be most effective in reducing these barriers to going to the doctor, keeping up with diagnostic procedures, and getting vaccinations, especially in our underserved populations?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Shelly Ann. Let me answer your question this way, to make the point. So you have preventive and there's corrective. Preventive and corrective. Preventive is what you want. That means we do everything right on the front end in terms of, eating right, exercising, doing all the things that Dr. Nelson stated in the opening remarks of this tonight's call, right? That's the preventive side, exercising, doing cardio. Men, it's okay to do yoga. My wife is still trying to get me to do yoga, right? It's okay to do yoga, right? That's preventive. But if you don't take care of things on the front end, then there's the corrective, Shelly Ann. There's a corrective. And I'm framing it that way because there are a lot of things that we do, again, in the Atlanta metropolitan area, more so than the rural parts, unfortunately. Like, for example, we just had Black Men's Wellness, where we put a pause on a Saturday. We partner with Morehouse School of Medicine, Johnson & Johnson, 100 Black men. I think we had nearly 1,000 Black men. Of course, Black women showed up too, and it was a family affair. But this Black Men's Wellness Day, which was largely put on by the African American Male Wellness Agency. And every year they put on this Black Men Wellness, and they also incorporate, Shelly Ann, a 5K. So you can walk the 5K, you can run the 5K, you can do a combination thereof. And in this Black Wellness for free is what I call know your numbers. They do a blood pressure, Dr. Nelson. They check your blood pressure, they check your A1C and see if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. They do check your height and weight, BMI, right? They do cholesterol check, HIV check, Hep C, all these things for free, a free screening. It's the know your numbers. We do all that on the front end. And I would love if we export this across all of Georgia. And, you know, you got to get sponsors to do it, right? Because we want people to freely come, get their numbers. And so sometimes it takes policy to build this environment that allows for corporations to do these kind of health fairs. I know some of my colleagues, including myself, we put on something a little bit more smaller scale in our district, but it's not as large scale as it needs to be to cast this wide net. And I got to tell you, when you start talking about policies, Shelly Ann, I'm concerned come 2025 because Project 2025 can make the cost and availability and everything else different than what we're talking about this evening. I'm just being honest. Because Project 2025, I know we didn't talk about it much, but when you start to talk about next year and policy and legislation, when they're going to go after Affordable Care Act, AKA Obamacare, and when you have an individual have the House and the Senate and the White House and the Supreme Court to eradicate over 50 million people are on Affordable Care Act. When you eradicate Medicaid and Medicare, now you're going to be dealing with and hurting our seniors and our children, Shelly Ann. So when you start talking about policies, today it's okay. We got insulin capped at $35 a month. President Biden is doing other things to make sure the costs are down. This is all driven by legislation. But come the new year, and I'm not trying to get anybody afraid and scary here, but the folks that this individual looking at appointing are inexperienced, non-healthcare practitioners. If you talk about putting someone like RFK Jr., who doesn't believe in vaccine, doesn't believe in science, doesn't believe in medicine, over the HHS or somebody equivalent to that, is dangerous.
Yeah.
When you start talking about deregulation, Shelly, that's being done, that could be done by the stroke of a pen in legislation. And so I foresee that if the federal government carry out this very vindictive manifesto called Project 2025, and there's a whole chapter in there where it's talking about healthcare, and it's just talking about removing things, Shelly Ann. It didn't say and replace it. It didn't say I'm gonna remove A and replace it with B. It just said I'm gonna get rid of it with nothing else in place. If now you're gonna have healthcare practitioners like Dr. Nelson trying to figure out what they need to do because they don't want to go to jail. They don't want to put their life's work in their medical practice. Someone like Dr. Nelson or Lyndon Jones, right? Because they got to follow the law.
Right.
Anything outside of that, now they're going to be personally liable. And we're already witnessing when they removed Roe v. Wade, that was policy that was in place. And when they removed it, then you have a Nicole Thurman situation and a Candy Miller situation, and 169 other women. That's their deaths could have been preventable. And so you have to look at policy. And your question is spot on, how policy dictates our healthcare environment. The healthcare system and the healthcare practitioners, that's all driven by legislation. And the wrong person at the helm can greatly place all of our lives in danger. So that's why we're suggesting we're going to put more emphasis on the preventive medicine, to do the things so that way, just in case a lot of these medical safety nets, Shelly Ann, disappear because the federal government says you can't do it, Georgia. You can't do that, Georgia. And if you do it, you're going to go to jail. Nobody wants to go to jail for trying to do no harm, because that's the oath that Lyndon and Dr. Nelson and other healthcare practitioners, that's their oath, to do no harm. And so I'm nervous. I am concerned when you start talking about policy, the central point of your question, how policy dictates this environment, it severely dictates everything.
Yeah.
And I know that's heavy, but that's where I am.
It is, but it's the
Your
reality.
question
And
asked
this is why
about
we're having these
legislation.
conversations. Yeah.
Your question asked about legislation, and legislation is what drives all of this. Medicine, what kind of medicine, the technology that Curtis talked about, legislation. Your government impacts your life from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. And if you don't wake up, your government still impacts your death.
Mm.
That part.
John Moy,
Can
I
I
just
have
saw
one-
you pop on. Look like you got a word for us, Mr. Moy.
Yeah,
He's
I always
wrapping
get
us up.
John Moy started.
He's wrapping us up
There's
because we could
there's
go
a
on
reason
all
why
He
John
be wrapping
Moy
us
and
up.
I, these last
Hey,
6
hold,
months.
hold on. Brother Jones had a question, had his hand raised a while back.
Lyndon.
Just
Yeah.
one thing, when you talk about policy, one of the things we try to do here at Grady Hospital to get a lower insurance is we offer our employees free health screenings for their lipid profile and
Preventative.
hemoglobin A1C, and we monitor those lab results during the year, and then they will get a reduction in their insurance if they maintain a certain level. So just, it's I know we talk about policy, but that's one of the major things we do here at Grady Hospital for full-time employees with health insurance.
Yeah, there's some really innovative strategies that a lot of facilities are developing, and that's just one of them. Thanks, Lyndon.
Mr.
Well,
John
thank you,
Moy.
thank you, Shelly Ann, and certainly thank you, Representative Jackson, and certainly Dr. Nelson and Lyndon. Derek, these are very perilous times. I wish I had some good news for everybody. I just wish I did. But what I can say is that we have to remain engaged, probably more now than ever. So at the sound of my voice, we need to be at anything that's dealing with public policy, whether it's your local county commission, your local Department of Health, the State Department of Health, or our congressional delegation. Our voices have to be heard, and that's the bottom line. I mean, because some serious decisions will be made within the next, I'm assuming over the next 48 months, that could really set us back 50, 60 years. And I don't think I'm exaggerating on this call in terms of progressive health policies, certainly since Lyndon Johnson, in terms of moving us forward. So that's what I would say. Stay vigilant, stay woke, and just we're going to have to fight. I wish I could tell you something. So, we're going to have to be engaged. It's not going to be passive this time. It's going to be boots on the ground, knocking on doors, making calls, showing up, even if we're tired at night, going to work, writing letters, writing a check, whatever that means. We're going to have to do that. And the fight is that great. It is that dire right now. We're at the gate. So we'll see come January 20th. Am I right, Derek? I guess the new president, new administration begins on January 20th. and we'll see what the configuration is in terms of the House. This is a nonpartisan call, but I'm just being candid with you all. It doesn't look well for us in terms of the communities that we serve. So we'll see what happens. But it's now, the time is near. I want to thank you all before I turn it back over to Shelley Ann to close us out. I want to thank you, the listening audience. We can't do what we do. Representative Jackson can't do what he does. I'm talking about policymakers or any of us on this call, unless you're involved, unless you're engaged. And so we're here not only to educate, but also to represent you in those places where you are not. But we also need your help there too. So I look forward to seeing you all in the future. I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving with your family, a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We will be back in the new year. On behalf of Nancy Johnson and the entire Urban League family, we thank you, the listening audience, for always being there for us so we can be there for you. At this time, I'll turn it over to my good friend, Shelley Ann McKenzie. Thank you all.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. As we conclude tonight's Men's Health virtual community event, I just want to extend a heartfelt thank you to each of you for participating tonight in this important conversation. Our panel brought together, whether you know it or not, diverse cultural perspectives, blending insights from West Indian and American backgrounds, along with veterans from the military, clinical, state, and digital health expertise. This range of experiences allows us to explore how cultural uniquely influences men's health choices and challenges. So we thank you for being here. Together, we're building a future where men's health is valued across all cultural backgrounds, leading to healthier, more inclusive communities for everyone. And we see people, let's look at what's in the chat as we wrap up. Thank you, Jan. We see a Jamaican flag, and thank you for participating tonight. Remember, the Urban League Gala is this Friday, November 15th. So hopefully you got your tickets because it is a sold out event. And another save the date, our Help for Healthcare Professionals Gala is April 5, 2025. So save the date, and we have all that information. You can grab it from the chat. But just save the date, and thank you so much for joining us. Any final words from any of our panelists? Dr. Nelson, anything?
I want to
Otherwise?
say good night,
Okay.
and I don't want us to end on doom and gloom. I
No.
want, as I have been sharing with people who have called me
Oh,
to
yes.
check on me, but I've turned into their therapist. And I want everyone to know that in failure is opportunity. I want you to see opportunity here
Mhm.
where we can stand in the gap. We
Mhm.
come up with new, fresh,
Innovative
creative,
solutions.
salient ideas
Mhm.
and solutions. We have to be more solution oriented, and we can do it. This is not the only inflection point in our society or our history where we have had to take a step back and regroup
Mhm.
and come with something new. This is not going to be the last time either.
Mhm.
But take the opportunity to love one another, support one another, go back to the drawing board,
Mhm.
see what our communities need,
Need, of course.
make sure that we are providing those things, because perilous times are coming. There's no doubt about that. But we have opportunities to
Mhm.
ensure a better, brighter horizon. Please make sure that you take care of yourselves.
Yes.
Only we can save us.
Mhm.
So you got to do your part. I, the practitioner, will show up and do my part. But I need you to come to me in your best fighting shape.
Mhm.
So do your part so I can do my part. And we can always live to fight another day. Thank you so much to everyone giving us your time this evening. And the unparalleled Shelley Ann McKenzie. The
Yeah.
last word is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. As a clinical nurse leader, I really think it's important to emphasize that we have to start in our own backyards. So we have to start at home, start in our own backyards, and make sure we are healthy, the people around us are healthy, and then together we can make a bigger impact. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Take care, everyone. Until next time. Mark?
Yeah, I'll stop it. I'll let everybody out. Okay, good.
Okay, we cut it. Oh. No
Yeah.
problem recording. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, some
You
people are
guys are the
still.
best. You guys crushed it.
Yeah.
Hey, Lita Jackson, I'll see you for dinner at the gala. Appreciate y'all. Thanks, Curtis.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you,
thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you,
Later.
Dr.
Thank
Michelle.
you
No
so
problem.
much
Thank you,
to
Alex.
our
Thank you all very much.
panelists.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bob.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.
Take care. God bless
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Night, everyone.
Night.